Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a man shot dead outside an Edinburgh pub taunted his enemies on social media ahead of his attack. Mark Webley was gunned down outside the Anchor Inn in Granton on Hogmanay. He'd earlier challenged his rivals.
Well, here Stone Cold Sober. Come and get it. I don't know you'll come.
Those paying tribute include Mark Webley's ex-partner, a former Euro Millions winner. Also on tonight's programme, a mother challenges proposed legislation that she says prioritises alleged teenage criminals over their victims.
We didn't get kept up to date with anything. I was always chasing information. It was never offered to me.
Also ahead, concerns raised over an uptick in mountain rescue call-outs over the festive periods.
In the sport, with the Premiership on pause, we'll assess how the league is shaping up for teams going into the winter break. Plus, the red-hot Chili Piper finding new puff after enduring a stroke and open-heart surgery. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. Mark Webley was gunned down outside a pub in Edinburgh just before the bells on Hogmanay. Now it's emerged that he posted videos on social media in the lead up to his death, taunting rivals to come and get him. 38-year-old Webley was the victim of what police have called a targeted attack. Today, they recovered a car in connection with the shooting. Richard Forbes reports.
What's in the man bag? Come and find out. Buttons. Come and get it. Tick, tick.
Shortly before he was killed, Mark Webley posted these videos on social media, taunting his enemies.
He's talking good fight, so when you're lying in bed or talking whatever he's doing, saying, we've got to get him, we've got to get him. Well, here Stone Cold Sober. Come and get it.
The 38-year-old was no stranger to violence. Back in 2005, he was jailed for 11 years after attempting to murder a gangland rival.
Do I look scared?
On Hogmanay, just before midnight, he was gunned down on the pavement outside a pub in Granton. His ex-girlfriend, Jane Park, was among the first to express sympathy, and floral tributes have been laid at the crime scene. The police are seeking to reassure the community by saying this was a targeted, isolated killing. However, those who live here say they're unsettled by what's happened.
It's really sad that what's happened, but at the same time I think the police were a wee bit late in coming out to sort things.
It makes me feel very uncomfortable to live in an area in which this kind of activity is taking place.
Meanwhile, community leaders are anxious that this violent crime shouldn't reflect badly on the area.
And not just seen as a violent, drug-ridden community that's just to be said, oh, Granton, here it is again. It's not the case. This is not the community that the vast majority of people live in.
The small minority that are blighting it and is giving it a bad reputation. I mean, we're starting 2024, with this as a headline for Granton.
A second man was injured in the shooting, and he remains in a serious but stable condition in hospital. But for Mark Webley, his life ended on Hogmanay.
One shot can end it all.
Well, Richard is at the scene for us in Edinburgh tonight. Richard, clearly a worrying time for the community, but what's the latest with the police investigation?
Well, it's been 3 days since the shooting took place, but here in Granton, the forensic teams were out in force again today looking for evidence. Officers in protective white suits carefully examined the pavements and the tarmac. Now, the road where the incident happened reopened to traffic last night, and this evening the cordon around the crime scene has been lifted. Now, behind me is the Anchor Inn, and it was outside this pub that the shooting took place shortly before midnight on Hogmanay. Police say a car pulled up, a man got out and shot 2 people. He then got back in the car and drove off in the direction of Leith. Now, that car is believed to be a red Hyundai Tucson, and an appeal's been made for any sightings of that car around the Granton area on the night of Hogmanay. This afternoon, we learnt that a car's been recovered from the Craigentinney area of the city, and work's underway to establish if this was the vehicle involved. Extra police patrols are continuing on the streets of Granton this evening. And anyone with information who hasn't yet spoken to officers is being asked to come forward now.
OK, Richard in Edinburgh, thank you. A victims' charity has raised concerns about proposed legislation which would see most 16 and 17-year-olds who commit offences referred to children's hearings rather than the criminal courts. Victim Support Scotland is concerned that under these changes, the offender will be supported by authorities, but the needs of the victim, often another child, will be disregarded. Our reporter Katrina Renton has a story.
This mother, who we are calling M to preserve her and her child's anonymity, told me what happened to her son.
I found out through somebody else that my son had been sexually abused, possibly raped at that point. I wasn't very sure. I spoke to my son, who was only 9 at the time, got as much as I needed to know in order to phone the police. He was raped, sexually abused by a slightly older child. So when I had as much information as I could, I rang Police Scotland, reported a crime, and then it was awful. It was quite horrific after that.
The case was referred to the Children's Hearing System. M said as the offender was entitled to privacy, there was no information forthcoming about what happened to him, but there were no restrictions on the children and others connected to them from still seeing each other.
My son didn't go to school until I got him into another school, about maybe 3 months, so he didn't get to see his friends, he didn't get to play football, he couldn't go outside. I knew social work would come on board and stuff because it was a child protection issue, and I kind of thought that social work would help us, but I had to sort out, well, with the help of victim support, I had to sort out counselling for him, which social work would tell me to get, but they didn't get me. I had to sort out a move of school for him, and we had to actually move out of town.
M believes if a similar offence had been dealt with in the adult justice system, there would be clearer boundaries.
I've always said if this was adults that we were speaking about, this would not be happening, definitely not be happening.
M's case involves younger children, but highlights the issues victims currently have with the children's hearings process. The new bill would widen that cohort to allow 16 and 17-year-olds who commit offences to attend a children's hearing. Currently, they would go to court.
All that we're doing is recognise it as extending to 16 and 17-year-olds who are children, by any definition of the word, what we've known since the early 60s, that children who become involved in conflict with the law, who become involved in offending behaviour, can more properly be dealt with by addressing their needs and not their deeds.
Victim Support wants the bill to take victims' voices equally into account within the children's hearing system.
Victims of crime have rights in Scotland. It's a problem at the moment that those rights are not balanced when it's a child who's harmed someone else. Their right to privacy, for example, at the moment is seen as being paramount.
The Scottish Government said ministers are working with a range of stakeholders, including Victim Support Scotland, on measures to improve victim support and information sharing arrangements ahead of the next stage of the bill. M says her son should have been better supported.
It was so vague, it was very vague, everything was vague. We didn't get kept up to date with anything. I was always chasing information, it was never offered to me. We were just not part of that at all, when we should have been the main focus.
A teenager has been arrested after a Raith Rovers football fan was attacked by a gang in Fife. The 18-year-old supporter was targeted after his club's win over Dunfermline Athletic yesterday. A video on social media shows the teenager being beaten while lying on the ground. Well, the reporter Morag Kinnebrat joins us now from Dunfermline. Morag, what more do we know about what happened?
Well, police arrested a 17-year-old youth during the course of this afternoon in connection with the assault on a Raith Rovers fan, which happened after the local derby football match had been on here yesterday afternoon in Dunfermline. The 18-year-old had been waiting at a bus stop outside the stadium after the match. His team Raith had won 2-1 against Dunfermline. He'd been waiting outside at a bus stop around 5:30 yesterday evening when he was assaulted. And in a video on social media, you can see a group of young men attacking him, punching, repeatedly kicking him, not only when he lay on the ground, but also as he scrambled to his feet, grabbed his phone and made his escape. Police say that he was treated for his injuries in hospital in Kirkcaldy, and they have been carrying out a thorough investigation since it happened. They are appealing for witnesses and say that they are determined to identify others who were involved.
Yeah, it's a shocking incident. The video's so graphic we've chosen not to show it. But what reaction has there been?
Well, perhaps understandably, there's been widespread condemnation, not only from both of the football clubs involved, but many others in these communities, saying that this kind of violence is totally unacceptable and has no place in these communities. Raith Rovers has been in touch with their fan, offering their support as well as working with the authorities trying to help the police. Dunfermline Athletic has echoed those concerns for the fans' welfare and also stressed that they are working closely with detectives trying to identify those who were involved, and they've said that any supporter who took part in that assault, which they've described as a horrific attack, will be banned from East End Park. Meanwhile, if anyone does have information, the police is urging them to contact them on the non-emergency 101 number.
OK, Morag in Dunfermline, thank you. Some of the day's other stories now. And the number of people seen at Scotland's A&E departments within 4 hours has hit its lowest level since December 2022. 67% of patients were seen within 4 hours in November. 5% waited longer than 12 hours. The Scottish Government's target is for 95% of patients to be admitted, transferred or discharged within 4 hours. Health Secretary Michael Matheson said he's working with health boards to improve performance. A ballot for strike action at Aberdeen University has begun amid cuts to modern language degrees. Management says not enough people are signing up for the courses. The University and College Union is asking members if they're willing to take part in a walkout or other industrial action.
Around 30 members of staff have been issued the threat of compulsory redundancies just a few weeks before Christmas, and we've been in several meetings with senior management and we've asked them to withdraw the threat of compulsory redundancies, but each time they've refused to withdraw the threat. So that's why we're balloting members. We're hoping for a high turnout and a big vote in favour of action.
And Edinburgh's ban on pavement parking will come into force on the 29th of January. Councils were given powers to stop vehicles from parking on pavements last month. The rules are designed to protect pavement users, especially those using wheelchairs or pushing buggies. Drivers who park on the pavement could be fined £100, reduced to £50 if they pay within 14 days. Now, when they look like this, why wouldn't you want to explore Scotland's mountains? But of course, it doesn't come without risk. And mountain rescue teams say they've had a busier start to winter than normal, with volunteers attending about 10 more call-outs compared to this time last year. Phil McDonald reports.
It's hard to resist the call of Scotland's hills and mountains in the winter. For climbers and walkers, it's a special time of the year. But it can be incredibly dangerous. Mountain rescue teams have had a busy start to the season, with December call-outs up on last year.
Some of them have been very, very challenging. Even in the last week, the volunteer teams have been out for a huge amount of hours overnight to bring people off the hills that have required assistance. And as I say, there have been 2 recorded avalanche events in Scotland that have required mountain rescue teams to go. Thankfully, nobody was in one of them, but somebody was seriously injured in the other. So this is the problem in winter. It's not so much the number of rescues, but actually the consequences, the severity of the rescue tends to be far greater in wintertime.
Volunteers battled snowstorms and avalanche debris in the lead up to Christmas. This was the scene when a party of 4 got lost when returning from a bothy in the Cairngorms. And on New Year's Day, a seriously injured walker was picked up by helicopter at Loch Mick.
That's the classic winter call-outs, I guess. It's a slip and a fall, and it's also that whole benighment, not realising just how dark it's going to get or how quickly it's going to get dark. And again, if you're not used to walking at night, that can be a real problem. You know, equally, you can train to walk at night. It's actually can be quite a pleasant experience with a head torch and good navigation. But for most people, it's out with their comfort zone.
As we start the new year, the harshest winter weather may be yet to come. Mountain rescue teams say people should enjoy what Scotland has to offer, but be aware of what can happen if things take a turn for the worst. Phil McDonald, reporting Scotland.
Tonight's main news again. A man shot dead outside an Edinburgh pub on Hogmanay taunted his enemies on social media ahead of the attack.
And in the sport, with the Premiership on pause, we'll assess how the league is shaping up for the teams going into the winter break.
The Red Hot Chili Pipers are known for their energetic performances, bringing a modern twist to traditional bagpipe music. But their founder, Stuart Castles, had his world turned upside down last year when he suffered a stroke at his son's birthday party. He's now on the road to recovery, and he's been telling us his story.
I'm Stuart Castles, founder of the Red Hot Chili Pipers. And I'm a survivor of stroke. Obviously, once you put the first, what's that going to do? Just over a year ago, at my son's second birthday party, I had a stroke. Initially, I wasn't really sure what was going on. I just excused myself and went upstairs, and then my wife came up the stairs and I couldn't speak. Really couldn't make any sense whatsoever. When I was at the hospital and found out I had a stroke, I just really couldn't believe it. I was so worried. It was so frightening. Frightening for me, I think frightening for family, frightening for my wife. You're never sure when how bad it's going to be. Are you ever going to recover? So you become pretty desperate, I suppose, to find help. For the first 4 months, it was just really relearning how to speak again. And you pretty much are going back to being like a 2-year-old, learning basic books. And as somebody who has spent a lot of my career obviously on stage, not being able to speak again was a real concern for me. And then, obviously, once we recognised it was the heart that caused it, I then had to have open heart surgery. So I went down to Edinburgh and had my heart valve replaced. Okay, here I am, Stuart Castles, Inverness, Scotland, 31st of March 2023, 4 weeks after a heart valve replacement and looking to get fitter than ever. I recognised very quickly that the best way to recover my brain and get back to being full health, or give me the best opportunity to get back to full health, was about getting fitter. But I always put the year, the anniversary, as being my target to get to the weight that I wanted to get to, and I got there 2 days before the anniversary. So I really can't remember who I was before the stroke. I really have had to reinvent myself. I've had to try and discover who I actually am now. The new me is somebody who values health a little bit more and values maybe family a little bit more, values my relationship with my wife and my boys, and want to make the most of the time that I have with those guys. Hopefully now I am a better person after the stroke, even if I can't remember who I was before.
And that was Stuart Castles from the Red Hot Chili Pipers, and we wish him a continued recovery. OK, let's get sport now with Amy. Hello.
Hi, Laura. Thanks very much. Good evening. The Premiership is paused for a few weeks, so it's as good a time as any to look at just how it is all playing out. We will start, first of all, with the title race and how these two managers, Philippe Clement and Brendan Rodgers, are faring. Celtic maintained their lead at the top with a 3-0 victory over St Mirren last night. There were quick-fire goals from Daisy Maeda and Matt O'Reilly before this red card for Toyosi Olasanya. Greg Taylor rounded off the scoring for Celtic in the second half. Earlier in the day, Rangers had bounced back from their Old Firm defeat with a 3-1 win over Kilmarnock. Ross McCausland and Abdallah Sima had put the Ibrox side 2 up in the first half. Danny Armstrong's penalty gave Killie a bit of hope before Todd Cantwell restored that 2-goal advantage for Rangers. This is how the top half of the table looks going into the break then. Celtic are 8 points ahead of Rangers, who, as you can see, still have 2 games in hand. Hearts are 10 points further back. We'll see more of them in a moment. Kilmarnock remain there in 4th place. There is, of course, still plenty of football to be played this season, but for 2 title-chasing managers, they were happy to secure all 3 points before the hiatus.
It's a combination of, obviously you want to score more goals, but their keeper makes some great saves, their defenders make some really good blocks, and we were maybe a wee bit wayward in our finishing. But the overall performance on the back end of a tough December schedule, on the back of a win against Rangers, the performance to come here was excellent.
Well, it's positive until now. Of course, there are some games and details and things that could have been better. We're working hard on that, and we're going to work hard after this short break with the players also in Spain and the weeks after to make them better and better.
At the other end of the table, it's looking like a difficult second half of the season ahead for Livingston and manager David Martindale. They lost 2-1 yesterday, making it 11 defeats in their last 13 games. This time it was the aforementioned Hearts who piled on the misery. Kenneth Vargas had given Stephen Naismith's side the lead before Lawrence Shankland grabbed his 7th goal in 6 games. The home side pulled one back though through this penalty from Andrew Shinney, but it just wasn't enough to end the disappointing run for David Martindale's men. Ross County, they also fell to defeat at home. Jamie McGrath's double helped Aberdeen to a 3-0 win in Dingwall. Bojan Miovski putting a bit of a gloss on the scoreline. Motherwell were close to making it back-to-back wins for the first time since August after Theo Bair and Bevis Mugabe had given them a 2-1 lead over Hibernian, but Eli Yuan rescued a point with his second of the game. So it's all pretty tightly packed in the bottom half of the table, apart from, there you can see 12th spot with Livy now 6 points adrift at the bottom. County, without a win in 4, are in that playoff position, but do have games in hand over St Johnstone and Motherwell. And with so much at stake, it looks like it is going to be a pretty busy transfer window all round.
If we play like that in games, we will be okay. The boys, for me, showed that they care about this club, they care about their own careers, they care about the staff. And if we go down, we'll go down fighting. That's the way I'll go down. I'll not go out with a whimper. But I genuinely still believe that we've got enough to stay in this division. But we can't keep sitting talking about positive performances coming out in the wrong end of defeats.
There will be transfer business, being done because we have to. We have to add to the squad. We don't have enough strength and depth. You can see that, and we'll certainly, have to add to the squad in the transfer window.
Everybody that's here at the minute, I believe, offers something, and then the flip side of that is that if we can just add 1 or 2 more, it's not necessarily to take MD's place. It's just to give us a hand, and I think you could see that out there in the dying embers that we're kind of searching to make sure that we're still fresh into the 95th minute of the game.
Finally to cycling, and Jack Carlin is confident he can be in the form of his life when the Olympic Games come around later this year. The 26-year-old won silver and bronze at the Commonwealths in 2022 to add to his silver and bronze the year before at the Tokyo Olympics. And ahead of the Games in Paris in the summer, Carlin believes he'll be ready to be at his peak.
It's been a long time coming, probably since the last Games to be fair, but I think especially for myself, and I think there's a few others, or quite a lot of others, it's quite hard to try and repeat everything every year. So for me, I look at it in a big, huge kind of block and go, well, what we want to do, we don't want to be amazing the year after the Games, we want to be amazing the year of the Games. So it's how do you build towards that final goal, which is the Olympics. So it's all going in the right direction. It can all go wrong at the last minute, you just don't know. It's sometimes a guessing game as much as it is thought out. But it's at the moment in time, I'm pretty confident in that I should be kicking a ball at the Olympics and giving it a run for its money,
So yes, a very big year for Jack.
In no time.
And a big evening, Laura. Of course, it is the final of the World Darts Championship this evening. I'm sure many people have had their eyes on Luke Littler. And we are joined on the 7, just over on the BBC Scotland channel in the next 10 minutes or so, by his first coach.
Oh, one to watch. We've been desperately trying to find a Scottish granny or something today.
We'll be
no luck
cheering
so
him on
far.
anyway.
Thanks, Amy. Well, yes, over on the BBC Scotland channel at 7, they're also speaking to a dog lover from the West Midlands who's been driving to Scotland to rehome around a dozen American Bully XLs after tighter laws on their ownership were introduced in England and Wales.
I've read stuff about, vans full of 15 dogs being dumped on the Scottish border. It's not like that at all. There's certainly not as many XLs being moved up to Scotland as people think. It's just obviously with there being less restrictions and everything, people are more open to taking them up to Scotland. Because about half of those XLs I've rehomed around England as well.
Yeah, and you can see that full interview in a few minutes over on the 7 on the BBC Scotland channel. But in the meantime, Christine is here with the weather. Hello.
Hi, Laura. Well,
looks sunny.
Not everywhere, though. I decided it would be nice to show an image of something that was the exception rather than the rule today, because it has been really quite an unsettled and showery day of weather. But we did see some lovely spells of brightness and sunshine, particularly across southern areas. Thanks very much. Good evening to you. Yes, as I say, it's been quite a showery day of weather across many parts of the country, and certainly that theme continues into this evening and tonight. The showers pushing northwards and eastwards, merging at times to give longer spells of rain. Remaining very windy across the Northern Isles with gale force gusts at times. Something of a clearance coming into western coasts and southern areas as we go through the early hours, with lows tonight of around 2 to 5 Celsius. To tomorrow, showery outbreaks of rain will continue to push through the Northern Isles, and following on, I think we will see further showers into western areas in particular as we go through the day. Staying very windy across the Northern Isles, strong to gale force gusts. Perhaps some winteriness in these showers across Shetland tomorrow afternoon. Some brighter breaks around the north and northeast Highlands, but something a little cloudier for central and southern areas. The odd heavy shower, perhaps occasional breaks in the cloud, and some heavy showers to come across parts of the northwest tomorrow afternoon, a high of around 8 or 9 Celsius. To tomorrow evening and night, still that showery regime, and it will remain windy across the Northern Isles. Indeed, into Friday, low pressure remains anchored to the northwest, so still influencing our weather. There will be some showery outbreaks of rain, particularly around the northeast coast across the Northern Isles too. Finally, the wind later in the day across the Isles will begin to ease. Scattered showers in the west, but otherwise some brightness and sunshine, and a high of around 7 Celsius. To the weekend, and low pressure is going to pull away, high pressure is going to move in. It's turning drier and calmer, but also a good deal colder even as we head into next week. So the weekend's looking dry, some sunshine by day, cold, frosty nights with some fog patches too. That's the forecast. Back to you, Laura.
Thank you, Kirsty. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. McAlpine will be here with your late news at 10:30 tonight. Until then, from everyone in the team, enjoy your evening. Good night.